Hello and welcome back to the Motorsport Baithak podcast. I'm your host DD and joining me once again is my friend and your co-host Vedant. On this episode, we'll be talking about Formula E rounds 3 and 4 that took place in Rome this past weekend. So let's grab some chai, take our seats, ready our opinions, and dive right into the conversation. Hello Vedant, it's been about a week and a half since I last saw you, since we last recorded a podcast. So how have you been?
Hello, Divya. I have been great. Yes, you're exactly right. It's been a long, long time, and it's great to be back here.
Exactly, and what a crazy weekend in Rome for Formula E, especially for Stoffel Van Dorn. There's much to talk about, much drama that happened not only in the race but even before round three started. Let's dive right into it. Well, I made it for the race on both days. It was really early here, but I couldn't make it to the qualifying and the practice session. So why don't you tell us about what happened during the round three practice session with Oliver Turvey, Jev, and Jake Dennis?
Yeah. So at the end of the practice session, at the end of practice one, Oliver Turvey seemingly forgot that they have to line up for practice starts. They can line up for practice starts, and he drove right into Jean-Eric Verne and Jake Dennis. Now the funny part about it is, obviously they knew that they knew the procedures and they knew everything, but due to some miscommunication and due to the nature of the circuit, because the cars were lined up on a kink sort of section on the track, and also surprisingly there were no indicators on the track, like no yellow flags or something like that the marshals could show that there are stationary cars ahead. So yeah, a great job by DS Tachita, although because they completely rebuilt John Eric Vaughan's car in 90 minutes for the start of free practice 2. He only missed about 10 minutes in that session, but they completely rebuilt the car and they also put in a new powertrain. So that's a great job for the team.
Absolutely, and Jev did deliver, finishing fifth, qualifying fifth in Super Bowl, and that weekend started really well for Stoffel Van Dorn, who we will talk about throughout the entire length of this podcast, just because of the roller coaster weekend he had. He qualified first, followed by Andrea Lauter, Roland, and then Degrassi, Jev, and Maxwell and Gunther. Um, Coming to the start of the race, what did you think about the first corner collision between Andre Lauter and Stoffel Van Dorn? A really late move from Lauter, but it seemed like Stoffel either didn't see that coming and closed the door, or closed the door regardless, hoping that Andre Lauter wouldn't go with the move. But very clumsy in the end from both of them. Although I think Andre Lauter did get a 5 second penalty, right,
Yeah,
for the move on.
yeah, Lauter did get a penalty, but I think that's the mentality that these drivers have, because it's not like Formula One that even the slightest of touches can damage your car and or everything like that. These cars are very like a lot of contact. We see a lot of contact throughout the races, and also the streets on the street circuits. It's too narrow for two cars to keep
See,
racing.
it's interesting you mentioned that. Like up until now, the last 6 seasons, I never had an issue with how narrow the street circuits were. The fact that you know there was always a wall to crash into for the drivers. But after this particular weekend in Rome, and we can come back to this later. I feel that we need the track limits to be, well, we need the walls to be not as close to the track limits. I feel, especially with how aggressively Formula E drivers have been racing at the start of the season. It just feels like the slightest move in Rome, especially, uh, ended up with drivers in the wall. I think we had multiple crashes in both races, with like the slightest touch, the slightest just like overcommitment, and it kind, while it did make the results interesting and more varied, I guess, but it kind of killed the race a lot of times, almost. What did you think about it?
Well, obviously, I have followed. I haven't followed Formula E as much in over the last 6 years, but last season and this season I followed it. Last season, of course, we had what 9 races. We had 6 races in Berlin, and the Berlin track is quite wide, so there was no problem in that. And but don't worry, The next 2 rounds are in Valencia, and it is a proper circuit. It's a proper purpose-built circuit, so we won't have those problems for the next 2 rounds at least.
Anyway, let's not digress. Let's come back to the move. Yep. So, what do you think? Did you think Andrew Lotto deserved the penalty for that move? I don't think so. I think it was. I don't know if Andrew Lotto didn't brake. We didn't see like the didn't see any data on the car. The Formula E didn't show any of the data, or like whether Andrew Lotto was still on the throttle, or had he already started to brake, or was he too late into the corner? But from what it seemed like a racing incident from both drivers, and I don't think Andrea Lotterer deserved a penalty for that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure. He did dive into he did
Yep.
dive
But
into the inside of Vandon, right? And I mean, the leading car must have some sort of advantage, I suppose. But I don't know. I'm not sure about.
yeah,
why-
I guess, but it just seems like they crashed, and it almost seemed like Lotterer didn't turn in, or somehow the cars just like kept on going straight, because we've seen Sam Bird make those moves all throughout the weekend and before. Sam Bird is one of the most. He's like the latest of the late movers. He's like the Daniel Ricciardo of Formula E, and we've seen him pull some late moves on all the drivers. But he never gets into trouble like Andrew Lotterer and Stoffel Vandoorne did. But anyway, Stoffel Vandoorne did come back. He went to the back of the grid. I think he was like P16 or P17 after.
Yeah, sorry, exactly. As you said, it might have been something to do with that. Lotterer didn't lose as many places as Vandon lost, so maybe he got that advantage, as to say. Maybe that's why he got the penalty, but I'm not too sure about that.
Yeah, to me it seemed like a racing incident, but South Vandon did really well to recover. It seemed like he had a lot of pace throughout the weekend in Rome. He went to the back of the grid. He was like P16, P17, and then he climbed back up to the top six. He was towards the end of the race before his huge crash, while trying to avoid Lucas Di Grassi, slowing down on the straight before his huge crash. He was running like P6 with Nick De Vries behind him or something like that, and then a very uncharacteristic crash. We already saw how much the Mercedes-Benz EQ team was struggling on the straight, like when there was that bump after on the straight, and the Mercedes car in general looked like really squirmy under braking. Both Nick De Vries and Stoffel Vandoorne caught a lot of slides and rear end drifts on the track, but in that moment, to avoid Lucas Di Grassi, Stoffel Vandoorne crashed and his race ended there. Very disheartening for him, because not only did he qualify on pole, he did make a huge comeback, but could not redeem himself at the end of the race.
Yeah, definitely. He came back from 13th to, I think, yeah, he was 4th when he crashed. When he
Yep.
spun out because of a loose drain cover or something, and it was a very very street circuity crash because of the drain covers. I think we have seen something like this in Monaco. I believe it was when George Russell
That was Azerbaijan, when George Russell went over the manhole and it
manhole.
hit the underside of his
Yeah.
car. Yep.
Exactly. So it's a street circuit characteristic, but yeah, it was a very disheartening, and especially because he also he took out his teammate De Vries also, right? And
Yep,
both Mercedes
But I think
did not finish.
Did like
so-
Nick De Vries still like finish in the points though at the end of the race?
No, he didn't finish.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, Nick De Vries did not finish at the end of the race, but Roland had a disappointing qualifying. He was all set to take Super Pole, but hits the wall at the very
Yeah.
last corner and breaks his suspension, which was again kind of disheartening. It was really exciting to see Roland up at like the top of the grid, and we were hoping that he would put in a great performance, but a disappointing start to the weekend for him.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it was great to see him, going for that super pole, going for that pole, and it was purple in both the first and second sectors, and he was quite leading it quite well, only for just a late braking, or I don't know what happened there, but he hit his rear on the outside of the track and lost the suspension. But the best part of the weekend was the fight between the two heavyweights, the two Formula E heavyweights, Jean-Eric
That is
Vergne
exactly what
and
I was gonna
Lucas
talk
Di
about.
Grassi. I mean, see, in Formula E we don't have pit stops, But as we discussed in the introductory video, in the introductory podcast of Formula E, attack mode is the strategy maker in Formula E. And in Rome, I think in Rome they had three uh, attack modes.
They had 2 attack modes in round 3, and then they had 3 attack modes in round 4.
Okay, right. So
Yeah,
even
which is
then,
also interesting
two.
because the strategy changed. Because if you look at round 3, I mean, which we're talking about right now, most of the drivers use their attack mode at both their attack modes after halfway through the race. But come round 4, they had 3 attack modes, but most of them ended up using all 3 attack modes before like the last 15 minutes of the race, which was really interesting to see that shift of strategy from literally like within 24 hours.
Yeah, I mean, using the attack modes before the end of the race is very important because otherwise you will get a 30-second penalty. So that's
Yeah,
not
but the battle
useful at
between
all.
Jeb and Degrassi round 3 for the win ended quite abruptly and quite sadly. It was a great battle that was going on, and we wanted to see Jeb and Degrassi, 3 world championships between them. We wanted to see them go toe to toe till the line, but that did not happen when Degrassi had a um, I can't remember what failed on his car.
Yeah, I mean,
It's some mechanical problem. He slowed down, and
yeah,
then yeah, I just can't seem to remember what happened. And then one had a clear track, and he took it all the way. And the Jaguars had a great weekend. The Jaguars, Sam Bird and Mitch Evans, great haul of points, and I think they were leading the championship pretty well after the third round.
they are what 20 odd points clear from
Uh,
the second place team. So yeah,
Absolutely.
great weekend for them.
Yeah. So great hollow points for Jaguar Racing after round 3, but round 4 not as fortunate as round 3 for them. So let's get into round 4 again. Once again, I miss the practice session. So if there's anything that you want to fill us in on, please do so, Vedant.
Surprisingly enough, Formula E practice on the Sunday was without incident, as far as I can remember. I mean, it was a 7 a.m. local time start, and I don't remember any open wheeler series or any series other than sports car racing in endurance racing at 7 a.m. local time. So it was a great change in look for the series, but it was a very damp track, very wet track. It was raining quite a while. Even qualifying the conditions were quite tricky. The track was quite wet,
But
and
that
that
produced some crazy results in qualifying, though.
exactly I was coming on to that.
So yeah, enlighten us. Go ahead.
So the rookies Nick Cassidy and Norman Nato took the front row. Now Nick Cassidy, we know he has potential, but his Formula E season so far had been subpar. He hadn't scored any points. Norman Nato, the race.com have termed him as the most exciting dark horse in the Formula E grid. Now I don't know a lot about him. I haven't followed his career before Formula E, but I think his performance in the Super Pole and his performance in qualifying speaks for itself, and he'll go from strength to strength further ahead.
Absolutely, and our old favorite from Mahindra Racing days, Pascal Wehrlein, took third under circumstances where his teammate Andre Lotterer was again ruled out because of some power limit breach during the qualifying lap, and Van Doon continued his roller coaster run in qualifying once again. This time qualifying fourth, almost 2.5 seconds behind Nick Cassidy, which was really surprising. Looking at his performance so far, and then Maximilian Gunther and Alexander Sims from Mahindra completed the Super Pole group. But again, as soon as the race started, Nick Cassidy, uncharacteristic spin. It seemed like a mechanical, like an electrical issue that logged all 4 wheels or something like that. Very uncharacteristic spin from Nick Cassidy on the first turn. He was not under pressure from Norman Nato. Nothing wrong, It was just you just all you got to do is make that turn, but he failed to do that. Norman Nato inherited the lead pretty easily and then maintained that for the next few laps.
Yes, Nick Cassidy created a very nice safety car restart with backing up the field and going away in the right moment. But I think the commentators mentioned that it was some kind of software failure or something like that. We don't know it yet, but it's a shame because even though he tried to come back after like losing all those positions, he couldn't finish the race because of another incident.
Absolutely. But then Norman Nader couldn't stay in the lead for too long, and he fell behind in the grid. And then we saw Pascal Wehrlein lead the race for quite a few laps, and he took quite a big lead, almost 2 seconds in the beginning from Stoffel Vandoorne, who was following him. But Vandoorne and Alexander Sims eventually caught up with him in the next few laps before they took their first attack mode. And soon Wehrlein was also caught napping at the restart. But we'll get into that. But once again, we saw Wehrlein throughout the race. We saw the similar problems he's had throughout his Formula E career. He has a strong first half of the race, and then he falls through the grid in the latter stages, which is really it's really worrying for because we wanted to see him do well. He's been here. He's had some good performances, but he's never been able to deliver consistently throughout the season. And once again, we saw him falling short of holding on to that first place throughout the race.
Yeah, it was very interesting because even though he lost the lead because of attack mode strategy, but that like he was literally napping at the safety car restart. The safety car happened because Sebastian Buemi and Lucas Di Grassi crashed, and I mean Buemi got a penalty for it but I don't know why he got a penalty for it. It was a very strange incident. It was a racing incident because Buemi was defending Di Grassi after passing him, so very strange. But as I said, Wehrlein was caught napping, and I wrote a joke about it. It was probably because of the early start to the day that they had. But yeah, that was just my overthinking or whatever. But Alexander Sims, great restart from him, taking that second position from Wehrlein and maintaining it towards the end of the race. He was catching Vandoorne, couldn't catch him, couldn't pass him
Vandoorne
for
was
the lead.
gone with the wind. He was in the wind. There was no catching Stoffel Vandoorne until the very end of the race, where we had the safety car, which bunched up the pack again. Stoffel Vandoorne maintained like a 4.5 second lead throughout the entirety of the race. Absolutely no pressure on him. But one thing I found interesting in round 4 was the fact that it almost seemed like, so, how usually when cars are running together, every other car will end up taking the attack mode at the same time, more or less. But in round 4, it seemed like everybody took attack mode all 3 times and all together. It just didn't seem like the strategy that people the teams. It seemed like all the strategies came together, and like none of the teams were reacting to each other. They were all on their own strategies, and everybody was taking the attack mode at the same time, which I guess in a way did not make the race as exciting as it could be. But I wouldn't say that there wasn't enough racing on track during round 4.
Yeah, the third attack mode was very interesting because we already know Formula E, the attack using both the attack modes is mandatory, and due to the close racing of Formula E, there are so many caution periods and yellow flags, full course yellows, that people oftentimes are not able to use that attack mode, their second attack mode, based on their strategy.
Yep.
And putting in that third attack mode was so much. I mean, it was a huge burden on the team as such, because they had to change their strategy not only from 24 hours earlier, but from what they are used to.
Yep.
And we saw, I think a few of the people, including Alex Lynn, did miss out on using the full quota of attack modes, and he did get a 30-second penalty, which
Essentially,
which took him down. Yeah, he was seventh on the
place.
road, but he got a 30-second penalty.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, Vandoorne finished first in that race, followed by Alexander Sims. A brilliant drive from him and a brilliant point solve from Mahindra Racing. And Pascal Wehrlein was passed by Norman Natter. Norman Natter would have finally been on the podium. But again, disappointing for him. He was disqualified after the race, as we know, for energy overuse, as he was critically low on energy in the final corners. But yeah, kind of disappointing. I guess this is where his inexperience kicks in. Throughout the last lap, we saw him struggle on 1% defending from Pascal Wehrlein, and it seemed like he had done it. But later on, we found out that that was not the case. So quite disheartening. But it shows us what he's made of, and hopefully we'll see some more brilliant performances from him in the coming rounds.
Yeah, definitely. It was a great weekend for the rookie and someone. No, I mean, I'm sure he's not really highly rated in everyone's books. But great weekend for Venturi, as his performance and Eduardo Mortara's points all on both the races.
Absolutely. Although a really disappointing round for our championship leaders, Nick De Vries and Sam Bird, both coming together and not being able to finish the race. No points for them during round 4, and De Vries has fallen down the order. He was leading after round 2, as we know. Currently, he sits 5th on the championship, behind 1 point behind his teammate Stoffel Vandoorne after his 25-point haul in round 4. And then we still have Sam Bird leading with 43 points, and then Mitch Evans and Robin Frines behind him, following closely. Which is kind of crazy because Sam Bird has had 2 DNFs. Sam Bird has had 2 DNFs and he's got a win and a pole, and he's still leading the championship after 4 rounds. Imagine that in Formula 1. I don't think you'd be anywhere close to being a championship leader with the way things usually pan out.
He's got a win and a podium, not a pole, a win and a podium.
That, yeah, that's what I meant. Yep.
But Nick De Vries did not finish both the rounds in Rome, and he has a grid penalty for round 1 in Valencia for that crash with Sam Bird. It's a disaster for Nick De Vries and for the Mercedes team. But Vandoorne's win, and I think he also got the fastest lap, 26 points. That really did put Mercedes on the it helped Mercedes, and they are second in the championship right now.
To catch up with Jaguar Racing. Yeah, Jaguar Racing didn't have a great round 4, and currently they're leading the Constructors' Championship with 82 points, and Mercedes did make up some points, and they're only 17 behind at 65. So hopefully we'll see some more battles between them. But biggest thing ever, biggest thing in Formula E that after 4 rounds we have all teams scoring points. I remember when we did the Formula E preview for this season, we were we don't know if Neo 333 will score points. We didn't know if the Dragon team would score points because they hadn't done well historically, but all teams have scored points at this point, which is really exciting. And I hope the championship becomes closer. We don't know how many rounds we'll get in Formula E, but it's definitely exciting, and I think that's what's making the drivers race even harder than ever before. We've seen so many collisions over this weekend that it's almost crazy. I can't even recall everything that happened over the weekend.
Yeah, definitely, due to the nature of the calendar, because as you said, we don't know how many races we'll have. Every race and every point is important, and it's much more important than in a regular season. So because the championship can come to an end at any point as it stands.
Absolutely. It was a great weekend, Vedant, but I only have one complaint with Formula E. Now usually I know we complain, we have the same complaint about Formula 1, right? But Formula E, it's even worse. What is going on with the production, with the TV, with the broadcasting? What is going on? I remember the battle between Jev and Degrassi at the front of the grid was happening, and Degrassi made that move, and that was not shown on television live because we were looking at 7th or 8th place battles. Similarly, when Alexander Sims and Pascal Wehrlein were fighting each other, we didn't see that on television. A lot of I just don't know what's going on. They're never showing the fights. We are always hearing the commentators talk about something that has happened on the grid, but we are looking at something else on our screens, and it just makes it so much harder to follow about what's going on. And I just hope they do a better job going into Valencia.
Yeah, I mean, see, the circuits are much smaller than Formula 1, and the grid is much more packed. So we have action on almost every part of the circuit, and we have only one screen, so it has something to do with that. But you are absolutely right. We do miss out on a lot of action and on a lot of
See, I'm
great
not saying that
overtakes
don't show us. Don't. I'm not saying you have to show us all the action. What I'm trying to say is some action is more important. The battle in the front. If there's a battle in the front, if John Eric won, if Lucas de Grassi is making a move on John Eric won, that is you want to see that moment live. You don't want to see a 10th place battle between uh, Alexander Sims, Bird, or whoever, or Robin Franz, going on. That's fine. We can come back to that later. But you have 3 world championships fighting for the win, and if you can't see that on television, then it doesn't make a lot of sense. And it's not just one incident. It happened over the weekend again and again, and it was kind of frustrating to see that happen.
Yeah, and also, Formula E is so incident packed that even when they are showing, a replay of something,
You're
like,
most likely missing out on
yeah,
something.
like the
That
race
is
is
true.
going on slowly. The race is going on very calmly. There's no action right now. Okay, let's show a replay of 2 laps ago where there was some overtakes which we might have missed. Oh no, there has been a crash, and it's been like this for years now. So yeah, you're
But
right.
yeah, that's great. Yeah, I should cut some slack for the Formula E production team. But anyway, great weekend, and I'm looking forward to Valencia. I think my hopes for this season for Formula E are even higher than before, and I hope we get some great racing and an even closer championship fight. Last year the championship fight wasn't close, but this year hopefully we'll get a better championship fight in Formula E. Any closing thoughts from you, Vedant?
Yeah, so firstly, obviously, we are going to Valencia next, and as I mentioned, it's a purpose-built circuit. It will be very interesting to see Formula E cars race with runoff area essentially, and these cars have raced in Valencia because that is their test track, and that has been their regular test track for years now. So they know the track, they know the limitations and the advantages of the track, and without the walls, we can see these drivers push each other even more, and we can see even better racing in Formula E. Hopefully, we'll see much lesser crashes. And I mean, as you said, the number of crashes in Rome and the frustration around it has risen from earlier years. And I was just thinking that maybe it has been 7 seasons. It's now World Championship. The experimenting period, or as such, and the the development period of the series is now over. They can move on. They can move on to proper circuits, and we have the next gen coming up in 2022, where we have recharging and where we have pit stops and all those things. So maybe we can have longer races. We can have longer tracks, and on purpose built circuits. But one thing I noticed in this round of Formula E, and a few people got penalized for it, is that there was a bump somewhere on the circuit, and whenever some cars ran through that bump, there was some sort of
There was an energy
power
spike.
spike.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely. Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
And some cars did get penalized for it. Now that is not the driver's mistake. That is not the car's mistake. That is the nature of the circuit. If obviously there are regulations, and according to the book they got penalized, but there has to be some sense in that, some common sense in that.
I think Formula has had problems with the regulations for the last 7 seasons, and even round 1 and 2, we saw people getting penalized for when the race was cut short, right? And then people got penalized for not being able to use their attack modes essentially, and that changed the results completely, or you could say. So we've seen Formula E have some problems with the regulations, and I think it's up to the teams to bring about that change from within the paddock. And as fans, we can only hope that happens soon, and hopefully the technology is developing quick and such things won't happen, because even in the first 2 rounds we saw I don't remember who crashed, but he had to be taken to the hospital because of software failure, couldn't participate in the race.
Yeah,
after
Eduardo
that, on, qualifying
Eduardo
session.
Mortara.
Eduardo Mortara, exactly. So and then Mercedes and I think Envision Virgin, who are customers for Mercedes, they had to do like a software. They had to look at the software for the glitches and stuff like that. So
Rocket Venturi are the customers.
Rocket Venturi Racing, and they were taken aside and they couldn't participate in one of the sessions. So I think even though the technology is developing, it's not there yet. And I think again we saw Nick Cassidy spinning, and which was another like software problem or something like that. So I think Formula E still has a long way to go as far as technology is concerned. I don't think it's still at par with F1. I mean, we see failures in F1, but they're usually not in the same circumstances as Formula E. You know, Formula E, you have 20 cars just around each other. Formula 1,
24 cars. 24 cars.
Yeah, that's right, 24 cars. But yeah, so I think there's a long way to go. But thank you, Vedant. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for sharing your thoughts. And I'll catch you on the next one.
Definitely.
And thank you for our listeners to listen to us.